Ferrari surprised everyone at the Chinese Grand Prix, putting the Australian disaster behind it. But what's changed? Stay tuned because we're going to analyze the secrets behind this resurgence of the prancing horse. Today you'll discover why the SF25 is performing in Shanghai and whether this improvement is real or just a mirage. And before we continue, tell me in the comments, do you think Ferrari can fight for the championship this year, or is it just a good one-off race? Ferrari entered the 2025 season with sky-high expectations. After a 2024 season in which it finished second in the Constructors' Championship, just 14 points behind McLaren, and with the arrival of Lewis Hamilton to strengthen the lineup alongside Charles Leclerc, the team had ambitions to return to the top. During preseason, the SF25 showed promising signs, with improved downforce and competitive test times. But the first race in Australia exposed weaknesses that no one had anticipated. The weekend in Melbourne began with Ferrari showing decent performance in practice. The SF25 seemed to have enough speed to challenge McLaren and Red Bull. But everything changed in qualifying. Both Hamilton and Leclerc suffered a drastic drop in performance, falling far behind the leaders. The big question was what had happened between Friday and Saturday that turned a competitive car into one that was difficult to handle and lacked speed. The key issue was the car's height. Ferrari was forced to raise the SF25 due to concerns about floor wear and compliance with FIA regulations. This compromised downforce and negatively affected cornering stability. The car lost grip in high-speed sections and displayed unpredictable behavior under braking. This technical adjustment doomed the team in qualifying, leaving it in an unfavorable position for the race. On Sunday, the problems only increased. With less downforce, the SF25 generated more slip and put excessive strain on the tires. This forced Hamilton and Leclerc to manage wear rather than attack. While McLaren and Red Bull battled for the lead, Ferrari was trapped in a conservative strategy, trying to minimize damage. They ended up scoring points, but the feeling within the team was one of frustration. With this disappointing result, Ferrari knew it couldn't afford another weekend like this. The following weeks were key to understanding what had gone wrong and how to fix it. The Chinese Grand Prix became a test for the SF25, where the team had to determine whether the Australian problem was an anomaly or a sign of a deeper weakness in the car. From day one in Shanghai, the times told a different story. Charles Leclerc set the second fastest time in the first free practice session, just behind Lando Norris and ahead of Oscar Piastri. This was the first sign that Ferrari was back in the fight. But what really changed the perception of the SF25 was sprint qualifying, where Lewis Hamilton took pole position, beating Max Verstappen by just 0.0018 seconds. The newly resurfaced Shanghai Circuit played a key role in this resurgence. The smoother surface allowed Ferrari to maintain optimal ride height, thus regaining the downforce lost in Australia. Without needing to raise the car to protect the ground, the SF25 was able to operate in its ideal configuration. This allowed the drivers to take advantage of the car's mechanical grip and aerodynamic efficiency. Unlike in Australia, where Ferrari had to modify the car on the fly, in China the SF25 performed consistently from the start of the weekend. Cornering stability improved and tire wear was more manageable. Hamilton and Leclerc were more comfortable with the car, allowing them to extract its true potential. The result in China not only represented a recovery in terms of performance, but also sent a clear message. Ferrari has a car capable of fighting if it can keep it within its optimal operating window. The big question now is whether this improvement is sustainable or whether it will depend too much on the characteristics of the track. The team has learned that the SF25 is extremely sensitive to height adjustments, and any change in this parameter can drastically affect its performance. In upcoming Grands Prix, Ferrari will need to find a solution to make the car more versatile and less dependent on specific conditions. This contrast between Australia and China has made it clear that Ferrari is not out of the fight, but it has also exposed its vulnerabilities. The team has taken a step forward, but the key now will be to maintain this trend and turn this good result into a consistent performance pattern throughout the season. One of the most surprising aspects of the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix was the dramatic change in the SF25's performance compared to the previous race in Australia. Ferrari went from a weekend where its car seemed unstable and lacked speed to a performance where Lewis Hamilton took pole position in the sprint race and Charles Leclerc showed highly competitive pace. But what changed in such a short time? The answer lies in a series of technical factors that favored the SF25 in Shanghai and allowed Ferrari to recover much of its performance. One of the most decisive elements was the car's height configuration. In Australia, the team was forced to raise the car's ride height between Friday and Saturday due to concerns about floor wear and compliance with FIA regulations. This adjustment significantly affected the car's downforce and balance, resulting in a considerable loss of performance in qualifying and the race. In China, the situation was completely different. The resurfacing of the Shanghai Circuit provided a smoother and less aggressive surface compared to Melbourne. This allowed Ferrari to maintain a lower car ride height without compromising the integrity of the floor, something they were unable to do in Australia. The difference was immediate. With optimal ride height, the SF25 was able to generate more downforce, improving stability in fast corners and reducing tire wear. Another key aspect was the efficiency of the SF25's aerodynamic package in favorable conditions. During pre-season testing, Ferrari had already demonstrated good performance in high-speed corners, and in Shanghai, that strength was confirmed. The SF25's design is optimized to generate high downforce when in its ideal configuration. In Australia, this configuration was compromised by the need to raise the car, but in China, without this limitation, the car was able to take full advantage of its aerodynamic efficiency. The resurfacing of the circuit also played a crucial role in Ferrari's recovery. Shanghai is characterized by its combination of high and low-speed corners, which requires a car with an appropriate balance between downforce and mechanical stability. The new asphalt allowed the cars to stay closer to the ground without suffering excessive wear on the floor, something Ferrari took advantage of. In addition to the car's height, Ferrari worked on the SF25 setup to maximize its performance in these types of conditions. The team made adjustments to the suspension and weight distribution to improve traction and the car's handling in the circuit's most technical corners. These changes allowed the drivers to find a better balance and extract more performance from the car, something reflected in the pace of Hamilton and Leclerc throughout the weekend. The difference in performance was also due to the SF25's better adaptation to the tires in Shanghai. In Australia, Ferrari suffered from excessive wear, which compromised its race pace. In China, the softer track surface and the car's greater stability allowed for better tire management, giving Ferrari a competitive advantage in terms of consistency over long runs. Another determining factor in Ferrari's improvement was the detailed analysis the team conducted after Australia. The technical staff in Maranello worked closely with the track team to understand the issues that affected performance in the first race and find solutions to prevent them from recurring in China. The absence of technical director Loic Serra in Shanghai, who remained in Italy to analyze the data in depth, demonstrates that Ferrari is taking a meticulous approach to optimizing its performance. Despite all these advances, the SF25 is still not a perfect car. Both Hamilton and Leclerc struggled to control the car in some sections of the circuit, indicating that there is still room for improvement in terms of balance and stability. However, Ferrari's ability to react quickly to problems and find effective solutions in a short time is a positive sign for the rest of the season. The Chinese Grand Prix made it clear that the SF25 has great potential when in its optimal configuration. The key for Ferrari will be to ensure these conditions can be replicated at other circuits and that the car doesn't become overly reliant on specific track characteristics to be competitive. Despite the notable improvement at the Chinese Grand Prix, Ferrari still faces significant challenges that could define the course of its season. Lewis Hamilton's pole position in sprint qualifying and the solid pace shown by Charles Leclerc were encouraging signs, but they don't mean all the SF25's issues have disappeared. While the team managed to optimize the car's performance in Shanghai, key issues remain to be resolved if Ferrari wants to be a real title contender in 2025. One of the main challenges is the inconsistency in the SF25's balance. Throughout the weekend in China, both drivers experienced difficulty controlling the car at certain times. Lewis Hamilton had several off-track excursions at turn 14, while Charles Leclerc spun in the sequence of turns 1 and 2. These errors were not isolated, but rather symptoms of a car that still lacks the stability and confidence necessary to fully exploit its performance under all circumstances. The balance issue is largely due to the SF25's extreme sensitivity to minimal setup changes. Charles Leclerc had previously noted that the car reacted abruptly to small variations in height or weight distribution, complicating the task of finding an optimal setup. This means that on circuits with less favorable characteristics than Shanghai, Ferrari could again face difficulties similar to those in Australia. Another critical point is the SF25's operating window. In China, Ferrari was able to keep the car within a height range that maximized its downforce, but this will not always be possible for the rest of the calendar. Circuits with more uneven surfaces, such as Imola or Monaco, could force the team to raise the car's height again, which would affect its performance. The key will be to develop solutions that reduce the car's sensitivity to these changes without compromising aerodynamic efficiency. Tire wear is another factor that Ferrari still needs to improve. Although tire compound management was more efficient in Shanghai compared to Australia, there is still uncertainty about the SF25's performance on long runs. If the team fails to optimize this aspect, it could find itself at a disadvantage against rivals such as McLaren and Red Bull on circuits where degradation is a determining factor in race strategy. Ferrari must also work on fully integrating Lewis Hamilton into the team. Although the 7-time world champion has shown great adaptability, he is still in a learning phase with the SF25 and has requested adjustments to accelerate this process. His experience and talent will be essential to the car's development, but he will need time and collaboration with the engineers to find the best way to extract maximum performance from the car. Another aspect the team cannot neglect is the development of the SF25 throughout the season. Red Bull and McLaren have demonstrated in recent years that the ability to evolve the car during the championship is a key factor in the fight for the title. Ferrari must ensure that its updates not only address current weaknesses but also keep the car competitive in the second half of the year, when the gaps between teams often narrow and every improvement can make a difference. The Chinese Grand Prix was a step in the right direction, but Ferrari still has work to do if it wants to establish itself as a championship contender. Addressing the SF25 sensitivity to setup changes, improving stability in different track conditions, and optimizing tire management will be key tasks in the upcoming races. If the team can overcome these challenges, it can turn this strong result into a turning point for the season. The Chinese Grand Prix was a turning point for Ferrari in the 2025 season. After a disastrous start in Australia, the Italian team demonstrated that the SF25 has real potential when in its optimal configuration. Lewis Hamilton's pole position in the sprint race and Charles Leclerc's competitive pace made it clear that, under the right conditions, Ferrari can fight at the front of the field. The result in Shanghai was no fluke. Key technical factors allowed the SF25 to perform better at this circuit, such as the ability to run with a lower ride height thanks to the new asphalt. The improved aerodynamic efficiency and stability in fast corners were decisive in the team's performance. However, this also raises a major question mark for the rest of the season. The real challenge for Ferrari will be to maintain this competitiveness on circuits with different characteristics. The SF25's sensitivity to height and balance adjustments remains an issue, and on tracks with more aggressive asphalt or uneven surfaces, such as Imola or Monaco, the team could again suffer the same setbacks as in Australia. If Ferrari doesn't find a solution to make its car more versatile, its performance could be inconsistent throughout the championship. Another crucial aspect will be the car's evolution during the season. Red Bull and McLaren have shown in recent years that continuous development is key to staying in the title fight. Ferrari can't rely solely on circuits that favor its car. It needs to work on improvements that allow it to be competitive in all conditions. The team will also have to continue adapting to the new dynamic with Lewis Hamilton. His experience and ability to develop a car can be a huge advantage for Ferrari, but the integration process with the team and adaptation to the SF25 are still ongoing. Communication with the engineers and adjustments to the setup will be key for Hamilton to fully exploit the car's potential. The Chinese Grand Prix was a showcase of what Ferrari is capable of when everything is right. However, the big question remains whether this performance is sustainable or if it was just a good weekend in favorable conditions. The upcoming races will be the true test for the team, where they must demonstrate whether they can maintain this level and consistently fight for victories. The 2025 season still has a long way to go. Ferrari has taken a step in the right direction, but now it must work to consolidate this recovery and prevent the Chinese Grand Prix from being just a mirage.